Throughout history, earthquakes have been known to be devastating natural disasters, causing fatalities and injuries across the globe. They tear down buildings with ease, leaving rubble down its wave of destruction. California and the West Coast have been lucky enough to not have suffered any major earthquakes unlike other areas. However, this may not be the case for long.
Fault if an earthquake reaches.
Have you ever been confused about earthquakes like this man here? Well, luckily, you're in the right place. And we're here to tell you about earthquakes before we get to the big one.
The crust and top mantle make up a thin skin of the soil on the surface of our planet, but this skin is made up of many pieces like a puzzle covering the surface of the Earth. Not only that, but these puzzle pieces keep slowly moving around, sliding past one another and bumping into each other. We call these puzzle pieces tectonic plates, and the edges of the plates are called plate boundaries. The plate boundaries are made up of many faults, and most of the earthquakes around the world occur on these faults. Since the edges of the plates are rough, they get stuck while the rest of the plates keep moving. Finally, when the plate has moved far enough, the edges unstick on one of the faults. In essence, this is what an earthquake is. It happens when there is a sudden slip on the fault resulting in the release of energy. This energy is known as seismic waves, which travel in all directions. The site where an earthquake takes place usually is far below the surface and called a focus. Directly above the surface is the earthquake's epicenter.
Hey Dad, did you feel that earthquake today?
Yeah, son. It was pretty big.
You know what else is pretty big? My love for you.
Really?
I love you.
I love you too, son.
Just kidding. What kind of earthquakes are there?
I don't know, son. We haven't gotten to that yet. There are three types of earthquakes. One is convergent boundary. Here, one plate is forced over another plate during movement, creating a thrust fault. Divergent boundary. Here, plates are forced apart from each other, usually forming a rift zone. This kind is common in ocean floors, where new floors are created. An example is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And lastly, transform fault. Unlike divergent and convergent, the plates here slip by each other. This is also called strike slip. And that, son, is a different type of earthquakes.
Wow, Dad, that was so cool.
Yeah, I know.
You're my superhero.
Wow, I feel so special.
You're not. You're lame. That topic was lame. I'm sorry you guys had to sit through that. I know you're all on your phone. Look at you over there. Moats, get off your phone, man. Alright, I'm leaving, Dad.
Why?
You want to know why?
Yeah.
Because I want a dad that knows about Richter scales, and you don't know anything about that. What are these dogs doing out in the front? Hello, sir.
What are you doing here?
You know about Richter scales?
Oh, glad you asked. I actually spent the last 6 hours studying Richter scales.
Will you be my dad?
Of course, come here.
Scientists measure the magnitude of an earthquake using the Richter scale, which is based on the information gathered by a seismograph. The Richter scale is a scale from 1 to 10, with each whole number increasing tenfold in wave amplitude. Thus, a level 6 earthquake is 10 times greater than a level 5 earthquake. Although major life-threatening earthquakes are rare, hundreds of microquakes occur every day. Microquakes are earthquakes normally unfelt by humans and do not exceed a level 3 earthquake.
Good night, you dad.
Good night, son.
I miss my old dad. Secretly, but the audience doesn't know that.
Who could it be? Oh, what are you doing here?
I want to learn about the San Andreas Fault and the suspected earthquake that's supposed to hit within the next 30 years. Will you do that?
Do you promise to be my son again?
Maybe. If you stop hitting me.
Okay.
Do you know of any tactics used in construction to prevent earthquake damage?
Yes, we do something like BRBs, which is a belt truss system that we put up around a system to give that flexibility between the upper sections. Like when I worked at Wilshire Grand, we had it on the 28th to the 31st floor.
Has any building you worked on suffered an earthquake, and if so, how did it hold up?
I actually did the business economic building over at Cal State Fullerton,
Okay.
and it didn't do real well in the stairways, and that's usually the biggest issue in earthquakes.
Mm.
So when I did the Wilshire Grand, they did the whole center core out of concrete, which we tied steel to it, so it had a lot more flexibility.
Okay. And a little bit of a background. It's supposed to be about like a 7.0 earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think a lot of our buildings would hold up if that were to happen and were to strike Southern California?
I don't think they're going to do real well. The one that has been seismically upgraded, which we've went in there, we've done a lot of bolstering on columns, which we've added rebar and different other things to make these buildings. And they're supposed to be rated up to like a 7.8.
Mm.
So at Wilshire Grand, everything is rated for a 7.8 earthquake. So hopefully we did the right job and it withstands that.
Mm. So you're saying some of the more reinforced buildings are going to be the ones that hold up, while the other ones are going to...
That is correct. And I think the way they used to build back then, even with the fascias when they used to do them out of brick and mortar, and yeah, I don't think those ones are going to do real well. But I think there's, on a lot of these high buildings, I think in the past 10 years, they have to bring these buildings up to code.
Okay.
So a lot of them, a lot of older ones didn't even have sprinkler systems. So they're still seismically retrofitting those as well.
Okay. Now, is there anything else you would like to share, or anything else that you kind of have in mind that you would want to just inform everyone on, or?
Well, I think everybody that goes to the new hospitals, or even like I was out at Loma Linda doing seismic retrofit there too. I think the hospitals are well above code, most of them. They go over and above on, obviously there's a reason why with all the patients and all the people that go to hospitals. So we do a really good job on hospitals, and we have a lot of those that we're actually doing right now.
That's good.
So.
All right. Like I said, that's not... The big one has come to be known as a devastating earthquake that is suspected to strike Southern California. California sits on top of the North American and Pacific tectonic plates. Conjoining these two plates is the San Andreas Fault. The last major earthquake in California was 112 years ago. A devastating 7.9 earthquake that caused major fires to outbreak in San Francisco. Because it has been so long since the last major earthquake, it is practically inevitable that there is going to be a very powerful earthquake striking Southern California in the near future. Many seismologists have described California as being overdue for a damaging earthquake. According to Peggy Hellweg, who is a seismologist at the University of California, Berkeley, there is a 99.9% chance that there will be a damaging quake, magnitude greater than or equal to 6.7, somewhere in California in the next 30 years. This somewhere is suspected to be Southern California for good reason. According to Jen Andrews, a seismologist at the Caltech Seismo Lab, said when the top infamous San Andreas Fault is broken up into three sections, top, central, and lower, it's clear that the section that's gone the longest amount of time without a big quake is the southern portion. So even though there was a major earthquake 112 years ago in California, the last major earthquake that took place in the southern section of the fault was about 300 years ago. This calls for much more buildup of stress in this portion of the fault. Thus, it is inevitable that this earthquake will occur, and it is guaranteed that it is going to be powerful. It is just a matter of time at this point.
Seismologists and engineers at Shakeout evaluate the damages if a 7.8 earthquake were to strike. In the following minutes after the earthquake, approximately 15,000 older buildings would collapse and water, electric, and gas lines would be severed, potentially causing the loss of all energy for the western United States. These lines that cross the San Andreas Fault wouldn't be fixed for months. Also, hundreds of fires would start, and with roads blocked and the water system damaged, emergency personnel wouldn't be able to put them all out. Smaller fires would merge into larger ones, taking out whole sections of Los Angeles. Aftershocks would shake the state, endangering rescue missions, and scientists say there could be up to 100,000 landslides and the demolition of entire hillsides. Such a shake could cause $200 billion in damage, 50,000 injuries, and 2,000 deaths, the researchers estimated. Hundreds of thousands, up to 1 million people would be displaced from Southern California, and millions would suffer unjust living conditions followed by the earthquake. The LA area might not ever recover from this natural disaster.
As a community, we can urge the reinforcement of older or weaker buildings to withstand earthquakes better. Aqueducts can be strengthened as well. Backups for telephone and internet lines can be developed. We could also develop plans and strategies to utilize once this earthquake inevitably hits. Individually, people can make sure to have fire extinguishers in case of the fires that are suspected to break out due to the earthquake. Along with this, some sort of stockpile of food and water would be useful as supplies could be cut off for a significant amount of time.